I want to catch the order in which we're going. Zechariah chapter 9, the march of Alexander the Great. This prophecy also predates Alexander by hundreds of years. But I want you to notice what it says in Zechariah 9 verse 1. The burden of the word of the Lord against the land of Hadrach with Damascus as its resting place. For the eyes of men, especially, now don't miss this, especially all the tribes of Israel are toward the Lord. Now, why are they looking to God? Why are they wanting to know if God will help them, be their Ebenezer? Look what it says here in verse 2. And Hamath also, which borders on it, Tyre and Sidon, the city of Tyre, the city of Sidon, though they are very wise, for Tyre built herself a fortress and piled up silver like dust and gold like the mire of the streets. Behold, the Lord will dispossess her and cast her wealth into the sea, and she will be consumed with fire. Now, when Alexander marched in and defeated the Persian army, he then turned and began to take Tyre. He commanded for Sidon to acquiesce, and they did. So Tyre and Sidon, the fulfillment of the prophecy is just as we see here in other places, and they cast everything into the sea. Verse 5, we begin. Now, what I want you to not miss is we're going to look at 4 of 5 Philistine cities. Verse 5, Ashkelon will see it and be afraid. Gaza, too, will writhe in pain. Also Ekron, for her expectation has been confounded. Now, don't miss this next line. Moreover, the king will perish from Gaza, and Ashkelon will not be inhabited. And a mongrel race will dwell in Ashdod. Now, what I want you to know is that Alexander only attacked 4 of the 5 Philistine cities. The only 4 he attacked are the 4 that it says he attacked here. By the way, he only killed 1 king of the 5 Philistine cities, the king of Gaza, whose name was Betis. What happened is he surrounded Gaza and they decided to fight. He took the city very quickly and he had Gaza, or King Betis, stand before him. Then Alexander personally beat him. Then, after he had beaten him, he was still alive. He had him tied up in leather strips, and he had his feet tied, and he took an awl, and he pierced both of his feet together, tied him to his chariot, and drug him through the streets of Gaza till his head fell off of his body, till he was decapitated. The goal was to strike fear in anybody that resisted him. But by the way, did you catch what happened? Alexander the Great, hundreds of years later, comes. He attacks the Persian army as we saw he would. Then he attacks in the order that Zechariah gives. And he only attacks 4 of the 5 Philistine cities. And he only kills 1 king, the king that we're told about hundreds of years before that he would kill. It's exactly as God said. And then I think if you haven't caught it, remember it says the people of the Lord are focused on God. Why? Because remember what Jerusalem did? When Alexander said, surrender to me, they said no. Now the armies of Alexander the Great are going to march on Jerusalem, the smallest and the least fortified of all the cities we just named. And notice what it says here, starting in verse 7. And I will remove their blood from their mouth and their detestable things from between their teeth. Then they also will be a remnant for our God and be like a clan in Judah, and Ekron like a Jebusite. He's talking about the Philistines. But notice verse 8. But even though he's allowed to destroy the Philistine cities, he's allowed to destroy Tyre and Sidon. Verse 8, but I will camp around my house because of an army, because of him who passes by and returns. And no oppressor will pass over them anymore. For now I have seen with my eyes. Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout in triumph, O daughter of Jerusalem. Now I want you to catch what happens. And by the way, we know this from multiple historic sources, but most of all from a man named Josephus, who was a historian that wrote about what occurred, and he lived during the time of Jesus. What happened is Alexander the Great turns to march on Jerusalem and destroy it. The high priest's name was Jadwa. And Jadwa knew that if God did not intercede, they would be destroyed. And he prayed and prayed and prayed and called for the people to fast. And the night before Alexander would reach them, he had a dream. And in his dream, he said, God talked to him and said, put on the garments of the high priest and have all of the priests put on their garments. Decorate the city and have sounds of celebration. And when Alexander approaches, you walk out in your priestly garments and meet him. Now, if you know anything about Jewish life, the priests did not wear their garments outside of the temple court. But Jadwa believed God was calling him to do it. And so he asked the priests to join him, and they agreed. They thought, what else do we have to lose? We're about to be destroyed. They decorate the city, and Alexander is marching on it. And remember, God said, I will defend this city. And as they got closer, Jadwa and the priests walked out to meet him. Alexander ordered his armies to stop. He got off of his horse, walked before Jadwa the high priest, and he knelt on the ground before him. When Philco, the leader of his armies, ran up to him and said, what are you doing? He said this. He said, before I left Macedonia, I had a dream. And a man dressed exactly as this man is. And Alexander would have had no way to see a high priestly garment. A man dressed exactly as this man did appeared to me, said, go and conquer and you will be successful. And he said, the God this man represents has called for me to come. And so he not only did not sack Jerusalem, he gave them gifts and he put them under his protection. The only city that had said no to him. And what does he do? He honors them. Jadwa takes him in and opens the book of Daniel and begins to show him the prophecies about him. And Alexander believes this is talking about him. And remember what the prophecy said, though? It says that a king would come with a united army, and when he had risen to his power, the one horn, he would be broken and it would be divided into four. Well, Alexander, when he reached the height of his power, died of syphilis. And his generals wanted to divide up his empire. But there were 5 generals. And they got ready to divide it into fifths. But what did the Bible say? The Bible said it had to be in 4. And what happened is the 4 actually ganged up on a general named Antigonus. And they killed him, murdered him, and only divided the empire into 4. Exactly as the Bible says. By the way, it said that he would come and pass by Jerusalem, and he would pass by again. He not only passes by Jerusalem and conquers Egypt, he comes back again and gives them more. And then he goes on, exactly as the Bible says. Now, if you haven't caught it, these prophecies are very specific. Every single thing within them, including the direction the armies travel, the order in which the battles took place, 4 of 5 Philistine cities being named, only 1 king being killed, sweeping dust off of a particular city site and leaving it a bare rock. Every single one of those are fulfilled exactly. Why? Because every time in the Bible, when a prophecy is given, it's always fulfilled exactly. Now, was it always fulfilled all at once? No. Remember in the situation of Tyre, it was like a wave. It got hit in one fulfillment. There was a break in another one. By the way, when the subject of the Messiah comes up, sometimes God lumps together first and second coming prophecy. And if you study it, you can see there's a division between the two. But they'll both be fulfilled exactly. Now, what does this mean to you? What does this mean to me? I want to tell you 3 things I think it means. Number 1. You and I need to interpret the Bible consistently. Whenever the Bible had an Old Testament prophecy, the way it was fulfilled, we should approach that same fulfillment in New Testament prophecy. Let me give you an example. When he says, that Alexander would literally come and pass by, and we see that literally fulfilled, the Bible says in our days and time, 2 men will rise up, they'll stand in front of a temple in Jerusalem. They will preach for 3.5 years. Then they'll be murdered. And then their bodies will be seen live all around the world, lying in the streets of Jerusalem in front of the temple. Now, you need to know, not all that many years ago, about 100 years ago, people said, that's impossible. Because Israel is not a nation and there's no temple. Now, by the way, let me just kind of do this real quickly. If I were to ask you what your heritage is, what's your genealogical heritage, what country background you come from, most of you could tell me. Some would say I'm Irish or Polish or Italian. I want to ask, how many Hittites are here? How about parasites? Termites? No, I'm kidding. Do we have any Philistines? Now, do you know why? Because when Alexander and the Roman army attacked those countries and dispossessed them, they ceased to be. Do you know which nation is the only nation that was ever deported and came back and fulfilled its destiny again?